to our webinar on the MA in Governance and IT and Financial Services Master's Programme. And I'm delighted to have a graduate of the programme, Joseph Gallagher. And Joseph was one of our graduates in, I think, the 2021-22 programme, Joseph. So we're delighted to have him here. So Joseph is a risk analyst with Fidelis Insurance Group, and what he's going to do is he's going to give us, I suppose, some insight into his role with Fidelis, but also to give an indication of how he found the programme and what benefit he got from the programme itself. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just maybe have a discussion with Joseph on his role and his experiences, etc. What I'm going to also do at the very end of that, I'm going to give you an opportunity of asking any questions that you might have for Joseph. And he's the person to ask. He's the person who's been through this programme. And he can, I've no doubt, will have answers to all your questions in relation to it, from the practical side to perhaps the benefits from the programme as well. Now, from my perspective, I will talk at the end in relation to the programme itself, so the modules involved, the delivery. We have a work-based learning project at the very end, so I will talk to you in relation to that. And again, if you have any questions in relation to that, feel free to ask me in relation to that. So, Joseph, could I just ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your own background?
Yeah, hi Ivan. Thanks for having me. The current role I'm holding now at the minute is, as you went through, with Fidelis, risk analyst. It's a role, so risk management within a corporation like Fidelis. It's wide ranging, so every aspect of the business you're dealing with. So as an insurance company, underwriting, claims, and then the more specific audit, legal department. So it's an interesting role, and essentially the main purpose of risk management at the end of the day is to make sure the business today is viable. So that means the business grows within relative risk-based constraints, which we call our risk appetites. And provided we grow, which is the important part, it's the fact that we grow sustainably and not recklessly. And some aspects of the course now, just trying to tie it back in. When you're looking at the global financial crisis, it's so clear and apparent that risk management, there's significant failings regarding the global financial crisis, where you look even at home in Ireland with the way banks let themselves be overexposed to the property market and things like that. So that would kind of be the general high role of high level of my role with Fidelis at the minute.
No, well, certainly, Joseph, when you talk about the financial crisis and the crash of 2008, I always say to students on the course that, you know, it's amazing we can go through such a traumatic event as that financial crash, and you always think, well, it'll never happen again, or we've learned our lesson in relation to that. But it's amazing how these types of events keep occurring, and even on, I know the RTE scandal is on a different type of scale, but still in all, it's dealing with risk and the chances of events occurring.
Absolutely, and that's the thing with risk management and corporate governance when it gets tied in, is irrespective, even of it being specifically financial. RTE is the prime example of an entity that you wouldn't think is corely financial or anything like that, having very poor corporate governance structures that is unraveling as we speak. So yeah, absolutely. It's just the fact, like, when we're doing the course back in 2021, and initially I'd done that higher diploma in the subject as well, is when we're focusing on the IT risk management things, like you're looking at the risk registers, appetites, tolerances. It's just how generally applicable, even outside of finance, how regarding technology, everything regarding risk management. It's so applicable even outside of finance specific. Now, finance is the key area that gets attention, because once finance goes sideways, it has a large economic impact.
Well, sure, and I think when you highlight the financial sector, the fact that, you know, we entrust our money, whatever amount of money we might have, we entrust that money to institutions, whether it's a bank, a credit union, or whoever it happens to be, and unfortunately there is a level of trust there, and I suppose when we talk about risk is inherently linked to the trust that we have in people, and it's about, I suppose, it's about being skeptical to a certain degree, in the sense that what you've got to do is you've got to ensure that you don't fully trust somebody or something with something that is very dear to you, and in those circumstances you do have to look at the risks of certain events occurring, and then to be able to plan accordingly for those risks actually materializing. Can I ask you, Joseph, just in relation to it, like, it is a fascinating area in terms of and very current area, but can I ask you how if I wanted to get into that area, how might I approach it? What kind of background should I have?
Yeah, so now, traditionally speaking, if you were to look at risk management, it would be an area kind of dominated by accountants and actuaries, but that's definitely changing. Most recently, like myself, my background was in law initially. I done LLB and the ATU. It was the ATU when I was in it. So there's aspects like a risk management team and the current environment. They want to be as diversified, kind of knowledge-wise. So outside of actuarial and accounting, whilst they're important, there's definitely other areas. And again, coming back to the course, it was the first time when I done the higher diploma, we done a work experience with Primerica, and that's where I got my first exposure to risk management. And luckily, through that placement, I was able to get my first job. Actually, was up in Primerica before it transitioned to PCS or TCS and PGIM. But no, that's how initially I got my foot in the door, and it kind of went from there. And then I got into insurance from Primerica, and I've changed companies, but I'm still in the same industry of insurance risk management.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just in terms of are you able to work remotely, or are you office based?
Yeah, no, we have a hybrid model. So generally 2 days a week at home, 3 days in the office. Now, again, there's certain times, say it's when we're coming into quarter end, when we're very busy regarding getting reporting compiled and everything, we may be in the office just because it's easier to communicate with everyone when you're just sitting across from them. But no, it's nice to have that balance then of working remotely, but it's just certain times, duty calls, we go into the office a little bit more frequently, but we have a very good model here. So yeah.
And just in terms of the masters in governance and IT and financial services, can I ask you, how did you find that in terms of the modules, and were there any particular modules that you had most interest in?
Yeah, no, I remember when I got the first conversation regarding the program when I was just finishing up my undergrad in law. And, you know, data protection, now that was when GDPR was more of a hot topic than it is now, and the opportunities that provided. So I enjoyed the data protection module, and the understanding you get from that, it does have value when you get into the real world, because the company I'm working for now, not so much, because we're a business-to-business company, but when I was in my previous role, it was a consumer-facing company, and, you know, I was consulting with the head of compliance on data protection projects and things like that. So you do get to use your knowledge from the course. And then the financial services side of it, it was actually the course when I done it initially, it led me to go down to Limerick and do a master's in core financial services. So that piqued my interest in that, you know, just general financial services. But one important part from the course now, and I'd say if anything in the current time, is the knowledge it provides you on IT and data, because it's such a big thing for companies now, data quality and data integrity and data accuracy, because they're building with the use of AI now. When you combine high quality data with AI, it has a real business benefit. So that's one aspect of the course, is the IT side. If you take any value, if you focus on that, because that's such, data governance is becoming a big thing, especially now for in the financial service industry, where companies are building models for how they're going to operate in the future, and currently it's really important.
And Joseph, in terms of opportunities in risk management, you obviously you're with Fidelis Insurance Group, but are there other areas or other opportunities, I should say, in relation to that area?
Yeah, just touching on that, even risk management and compliance, it's really becoming a sought after area, because the regulation that's been coming in now, specifically regarding Solvency II in the insurance area, but when you're looking at investments, MiFID and GDPR, these positions are becoming essentially regulatory focus, and companies, it's not that they need to get ahead of the game. So definitely, personally speaking, you know, recruiters are fairly active in the market for risk and compliance roles. So it's definitely a very good area to get into.
Yeah, and I think certainly from what you've said so far, like it is amazing in terms of what we probably don't think it, but how risk does impact us on a day-to-day basis. And data, I suppose, then the risk of our data of being lost or there have been a data breach, that is an area that I suppose we might have some experience of, or certainly we've read things that and I think recently the PSNI in Northern Ireland have had a huge issue in relation to that, and ultimately resulting in the head having to resign over it. So I suppose in terms of risk, that is a very good case study of where risk materializes and then the fallout from that.
Yeah, it's once it's the snowball effect, really. It can become an avalanche very quick once one little thing goes. And yeah, the PSNI, and I remember when doing the course, when you looked at some of the case studies and how poorly structured things were, it was it's not surprising to see some of these things come to fruition yet.
Yeah. And just in terms of, I think you had said that you had work experience in Primerica, isn't that right?
Yeah. So no, that was 5 years ago. So yeah, that was when we done the higher diploma in the subject, and then afterwards, I done the master. So yeah, it was Primerica was where I initially started off with the work-based learning from the course.
Yeah, because I think one of the features of the course is the work-based learning project, and that is the ability to, you know, take what you've learned, I suppose, in the classroom and then go out into a real life situation and put it into practice.
Absolutely, yeah. So just to take an example of that, like some of the key areas that the course covered, take for example the Senior Executive Accountability Regime, SEER, and as I mentioned, GDPR. It give you the opportunity, like given the way risk is structured into a business, you're engaging with senior stakeholders in the business, so executive level individuals, like, and I've had experience previously of sitting down with, as I said, the head of compliance, different department heads like underwriting, talking about these things, and it really gives you the visibility then within the business that you're a person who's switched on to these kind of things, and you can become a point of contact in future for them.
And Joseph, would it be right in saying that when you're dealing with risk management, it really is a multidisciplinary approach to it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's across the enterprise. There's so many aspects you're looking at. So one minute you could be looking at the solvency of the company, and you're looking at the financials and making sure you have enough capital to meet your regulatory requirements and rating agency. And then the next minute you could be sitting down with facilities talking about physical security regarding access to the building. And then you could be sitting down with IT talking about, again, data quality, data integrity, data governance. So yeah, it's a wide encompassing role, and it keeps you on your feet anyway. It's not one of them jobs where you're kind of pigeonholed in a specific area. So absolutely, it's a wide role, and as I mentioned, just the nature of risk management, it gives you the, in my experience with being in the companies I have been in, you're engaging with senior management on a regular basis through risk management activities, which you have your risk register meetings, through the RCSA process, your risk appetite meetings, strategy input. So yeah, it's a wide encompassing role, and yeah.
I would say, Joseph, there are times when senior management hates seeing you coming through the door because there could be
there's always
something wrong.
Yeah, no, following up with outstanding actions isn't the most fun job.
No, but I suppose, look, that's all part and parcel of it, and in a way, it's kind of the old auditor's role, in the sense that you have to follow up, but as opposed to the auditor only being interested primarily from a financial point of view, your role and the area of risk is actually company wide and organization wide.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing with risk management. And when you get into the more quantitative side of it, you can see the correlations between different areas and how they can, essentially, as I mentioned, snowball and become detrimental. So it's trying to get ahead of that, and at the same time making sure the business stays profitable, which isn't always the easiest thing, but that's the aim of the game anyway.
Yeah, and I would imagine, Joseph, that your role entails keeping yourself updated all the time with new developments. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we have now Fidelis, we have a couple of various sources of staying up to date with insurance specific information. Like recently now, because it's the time of the year and we're a specialty insurer, hurricane season and the States is an area we're focusing on. And then you're always staying up to date, any kind of major developments worldwide. Like, you just need to really stay on top of things.
no, listen, that's all very, very fascinating, Joseph, and thank you very much for taking the time out to speak to us in relation to it.
No problem.
I see that there's a number of people online, and what I might do is I might ask if there are any questions for yourself in relation to your own experiences of the course or the role that you perform in risk management. So, great. If anyone has any questions, if you just unmute your microphone, and I'll see you doing that, and then I can bring you in and ask Joseph. Either a good sign, Joseph, that there's no questions, that you've covered everything. That's normally a very good sign in relation to it. I suppose from my own perspective, like when we develop programs in ATU, what we always do is we always go to industry and we say, well, look, what are you looking for in terms of graduates? And you had mentioned about data protection being a module that you had an interest in, because that was one of the modules that I had delivered, and it was certainly what we did was we went out to industry and we asked them, okay, if you wanted a graduate to recruit, what type of graduate are you looking for? What skill set are you seeking in that graduate? And then what you do is, so that's the end product. And then what you do is you work backwards and you say, okay, how do we get that person, and how do we mold that person into what employers are looking for? And certainly where ATU Donegal is based in the northwest of Ireland, it is very, very beneficial that we have a number of financial services company, both here in Letterkenny, which is where ATU Donegal is primarily based, and then across the border in Derry City as well. There are a number of financial services companies located as well. And I suppose, Joseph, from an employer's perspective, this is exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for institutions to come and say, well, what do you need? What qualities are you looking for?
Absolutely, yeah. And I touched on, I even like students when they're coming out, like myself, when you're able to essentially jump in from the start and provide value, that's the key. Like, and just maybe some areas to focus on for prospective students, for like this, as I mentioned, the senior executive accountability regime. Just take that for example. If a student was to go into a financial services company, and particularly because of the nature of it, senior execs are going to be very keen to have an understanding of that. And if you're going to be the person that's going to be informing them, that's going to have a very good benefit for the employee themselves from getting exposure in the business, but you're going to be delivering value straight away to the business, and that's only a beneficial thing.
Absolutely, and one of the things about the course, I think, which is quite beneficial, is the work-based learning project, because what we encourage our students to do is to go, and it can be their current employer, or it is by way of a placement that you went through. It's to ask them, okay, is there an area that you wish me to carry out research on, and then produce a paper on that, which is beneficial not only from their perspective but also the employer's perspective as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So when I done 2 work placements based off the course, and one example of that, as I mentioned, but when we're focusing on the module Dermot McCall had for us on the Consumer Protection Code, it was very beneficial. And now when we carried out the module, we essentially done a case study, and things like that, they add real value. And then if a prospective student really puts some focus into that, they can use that as leverage when they're looking for a job in the market. You can use that as a portfolio. So things like that, if a prospective employer maybe a head of compliance or head of risk during the recruitment process sees a candidate have a breakdown in the CPC and has a very good understanding, is able to communicate the intricate parts of the Consumer Protection Code very simply, they're going to look at that and think that that's something that definitely can add value to our company. And that's kind of things the work-based learning aspect of the course really helped with.
Oh, that's great to hear. Well, Joseph, again, thank you very much for coming on board in terms of giving an insight into your own working background and your experiences with the course. And I wish you every future success with your role. What I might do now is I might just go through, for the benefit of everyone else, I might go through the course. So you can take a break now, Joseph. That's the hard work done for you.
More than welcome, Nathan. Thank you.
Thanks a million. So just in terms of the program itself, so the program, it's as I indicated to you, it's an MA in governance and IT and financial services, and it's a level 9 qualification, and it takes place over a 15-month period. So it's 15 months in duration. Now, what we have is we essentially have a number of modules which are delivered, and then we have, as I've indicated, we have a work-based learning project, and that comes at the very end. So when we developed the program, as when I was discussing with Joseph, what we did was we went out into industry and we found out, well, what areas in financial services would you want potential employees to be exposed to? And what we did was we designed modules based on that. So we have things like financial services industry module, we have a blockchain module, which you're probably all aware the blockchain is something that is very much in the news. It's very topical. Cryptocurrency is a type of blockchain, but it's only one type, and we look at that because certainly whether we like it or not, it's going to play a huge role going forward, particularly in financial services area. Now, as Joseph has indicated to you, risk is a huge area, and we look at that from the point of view of governance and ethical behavior and regulation. And there are a huge number of case studies on that whole area. And I always go back, the one that I always start with is the Enron case study, because that is the classic example of how executives in a company, when they were allowed to do whatever they wanted to, just took full advantage and made decisions which were born out of their own greed. So we look at that in the governance, ethics and regulation. Now, as Joseph also indicated, you will get exposure to IT. So we look at things like IT, security compliance, privacy, which encompasses data protection and GDPR. We also look at IT risk management and audit as well. So the course is very balanced. It's balanced between, the IT side of things, but also the regulatory part of it as well. And certainly in terms of the typical entrance onto the course. Well, the typical entrance onto the course they have a degree, normally a degree in law. We've had people who have degrees in business, but also in IT as well. And you can understand how those three different disciplines that they're all incorporated within the masters as well. Now, in terms of the actual delivery of the program, so the program is delivered 100% online. So it's delivered by way of a lecture, which depending on the credits that attach to a particular module. So overall, the master's program consists of 90 credits. Now, modules are either a 5-credit module or a 10-credit module. Now, a 5-credit module is essentially delivered over a 4-week period. The 10-credit module is over an 8-week period. So in terms of the delivery, as I've indicated, the delivery is online. So it is one evening a week. So it won't impact if you're working. It won't impact in that regard. The only requirement that may impact you from a working point of view is that you have what we call a block day. So once for each module, we have a block day. So that is one day from 9 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we deliver a lecture. So if you think about it in terms of commitment, you have one evening a week for, and this is for the 5-credit module. So you have one evening a week for 3 weeks, and then you have one block day as well. So that encompasses the 4-week period. Now, in terms of the 10-credit module, what you have is you have a slightly longer lecture in the evening. That's delivered over, so you have 6 weeks, and then you have your block day as well. So those modules, so you have a number of modules in each of the semesters. So what happens is a module is delivered, it's assessed by way of continuous assessment. There are no exams. And then you finish that module and you move on to the next module. Okay, so that's how it works in terms of the delivery. At the very end, we have the work-based learning project. So after you complete all your modules, you have your work-based learning project, which essentially what it does is it touches upon your experiences of your own work if you have a suitable job. So if you have a job, for example, in financial services, then that would normally be deemed suitable to carry out your work-based learning project. If, however, you don't have a suitable job, then we can place you with a firm in order to allow you to carry out your work-based learning project. So that comes at the very end, and that work-based learning project is worth 30 credits. So your modules are worth combined 60 credits, so it's either 5 credit or 10 credit module, and then you have your 30 credits at the end. Now, at the end of your work-based learning period, what you will deliver a project, and that project, as I was discussing with Joseph, the project is based on an area, a topical area, an area of interest, and what we would generally encourage, we encourage you to go to your employer, or alternatively, if you're being placed, you go to them and you say, I'm thinking of doing my project on, for example, data protection, GDPR. Is there any particular part that you would like me to do, or is there any area that you would like me to carry out research on? And we found that to be very beneficial from both the student's perspective, but also from the employer's perspective as well. The reports that we have received, the feedback we have received has been very, very positive in relation to that, both from the students, but also from the employers and the placements as well. So in terms of I don't know if anyone has any questions in relation to that. Now, if you have any questions or queries, what I would suggest that you do, Donald Hannigan is the Executive and Professional Education Coordinator, and what I would always suggest, and Donald has just appeared on screen, so what I would suggest is that you contact Donald at first instance, and he will direct you in relation to the application process. Donald's always very happy to answer any queries that you might have in relation to that. Okay, so I think we were due to finish at 10 to 2, so I think it's just turned 1:51. So great, Kieran, thank you very much for that. I don't want to impact on your lunch break any longer. So if there are no other questions, what I'd like to do is, great, Shane, thank you very much. What I'd like to do is I'd like to just thank Joseph again for giving up his time to talk to us in relation to his role. I think it was very insightful, very provided a great insight into both what he does, but also in terms of the course and the benefits he found from the course as well.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Ivan. More than welcome.
Thanks very much, Joe.
That's great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Take care.